Building collapses are frequent in Africa's most populous country, where regulations are poorly enforced and construction materials often substandard. On November 1st, 2021, a 21-story building located at Ikoyi, Lagos State, Nigeria, collapsed, which led to the death of more than 40 persons, including its owner. Agitated families whose loved ones were missing were seen wailing, while others prayed in small groups for the safe return of their relatives. Others got into a scuffle with government officials, demanding to be allowed to help with the search operations. Also, barely 24 hours after the collapse of the Ikoyi building, a two-story building, which was still under construction, caved in after the heavy downpour on Monday night in Osapa, London, Lekki, Lagos State. It is not the first time or second such an incident is happening in Lagos State, which is known as an emerging megacity of nearly 24 million people and a commercial hub center in sub-Saharan Africa. This title has come with a number of challenges, one of which is the safety of buildings. In 2014, Lagos experienced one of its worst disasters when a 6-story building collapsed during a service by Nigerian-based televangelist, late T.B. Joshua, which led to the death of over 116 persons. According to a research by planning expert, Dr. Okunola Olakunsomi, between 2005 and 2020, 150 buildings, mostly residential, collapsed in Lagos, and about 4,000 families were left homeless and traumatized. This does not entirely mean that building collapse happened only in Lagos State. Other states are affected, but majority of the cases occur in Lagos, so we'll be using Lagos as the case study here. One of the questions in the minds of many is, what causes building collapse? According to Gerald Igboabuchi, a civil engineer, a lot of basic standards in the construction of high-rise buildings have been compromised by corruption. He said the use of substandard building materials and a combination of other problems are responsible for the large number of building collapses in Lagos. It happens frequently in Lagos because the soil load bearing capacity isn't as good as it is in other cities outside Lagos. Disasters such as this also happen when you cut corners or there are defects in designs or analysis of the building. Roots TV team, however, reached out to a renowned structural engineer, Professor Abiyayiwa Agare, who gave more insight on the causes of building collapses.
First reason is design errors. So somebody designed it, the structural engineer designed it, made a mistake, and the mistake is, catastrophic. For example, the members could be on their design. Maybe the columns, which many people call it pillars in Nigeria, may be under-designed and therefore undersized. So that could happen. So that's a design error. And there could be a construction error. So it was designed, let's say it was designed well, but when it was being built, number one, the contractor may have used substandard materials or may not have built it to the size that was requested by the engineer. And there's also, in general, for an existing building, lack of maintenance. In this particular case, in this particular collapse, that would not be an issue, but use of substandard materials could be an issue. Another thing that's an issue, especially in Nigeria, and it's an issue here, anywhere in the world, as in fact, is extreme loading. That is, if you add more load to the structure than it was designed for. For example, you're building a 5-story building and you decide last minute that you want to add another story or 2 stories without checking the foundations, without checking the columns, without checking the structure, the 5-story structure as it stands at that time, to make sure that it can support the load. So that's number 4. Number 5, you could also have terrorist attacks. You could have sabotage. There might be a bomb blast. Somebody might sabotage a building, as it has happened in some cases. So those are the general reasons why a building might collapse.
He further explained how to identify the cause of a building collapse.
The American Society of Civil Engineers has a process that they recommend, the investigative team go through. The first thing you want to do is collect all the structural drawings, the test reports. Were they testing the concrete that they were using in building this structure? All the test results, the concrete test results, and every drawing that was submitted. And then they want to confirm that what was in the drawing was what was built. So the debris on the site right now is very, very important for them to preserve. They need to preserve some of those debris because they need to compare what's in the drawings, the structural drawings or contract drawings and specifications. They need to compare those to what they find on site. If the column, for example, was supposed to be 400 millimeters by 800 millimeters, they want to be able to check to make sure that they can find the debris of that particular column, that indeed was the case. So they want to confirm some of those facts. So that's the first thing you do. And then you need to confirm that the design was properly done. You don't assume that because the building was standing there for a while, that it was done properly. You cannot make that assumption. You go into this whole investigation with an open mind. You don't make any assumptions. You don't make any, you don't go there with a biased mind and say, this is it, this is what caused the collapse. You go in with an open mind. You check the design, the original design, to make sure that the design was well done. Then you try to figure out the construction. Was it well constructed? Were there construction defects and construction errors? You try to figure that out. And then you take samples of the debris right now that's on site, the concrete samples, you test them. You test the rebar, the reinforcement, the steel rods, as they call them. You test those as well to make sure that the strength that they show that you get actually matches what was in the original drawings or specifications. So once you've done that, then you do an analysis of the building. You check the column size, the amount of reinforcement in the column. Was it enough? Because the way this building went down, it pancaked. That means all the floors stacked up on each other, just like pancakes or a pack of cards. So you ask yourself, one hypothesis would be the columns may have been under-designed or may have been overstressed. So you've got to check those columns to confirm or verify that indeed is the case. So you're going to have many hypotheses, many failure theories that you're going to rule in or rule out based on evidence and based on analysis of this structure.
Agayere also spoke on the role of the government in preventing these unfortunate mishaps from occurring. He said,
the government has a huge role to play. Number one, the building control department in Lagos State, for example, needs to have an enforcement arm that can really enforce construction inspections. So when they give the permit to someone to build a building, they need to be able to get into that construction site to inspect and make sure that the construction is taking place according to the plans and according to the permit that was given. So the government has a huge role, and that cannot be overemphasized. I saw a video of the government trying to inspect this building that collapsed a few months back, or I think it was last year. So they need to inspect any building that's under construction, especially multi-story buildings. They need to do inspections, construction inspections. And also, I believe that the government in Nigeria, or anywhere else for that matter, for a 21-story building may not be well suited to actually verify that the building has been well designed. I don't think they have the manpower to do that. And I will recommend that government jurisdiction, government agencies will farm out the job of reviewing these types of projects to other consulting firms, so that there will be a peer review sort of taking place. because I believe that if there was another consulting firm, a reputable consulting firm, of which there are many in Nigeria, reputable firms, to review this type of a drawing, they probably would have picked out, if there was any defects, the defects that would be in the original design. So at least a second eye, taking a look at the structure, will help the government and will help the people to prevent these types of collapses.
When asked what the possible cause of the collapse was, he said,
to find out what the root cause is, that would be speculation on my part, but I can say that there are possible theories. Were the columns under-designed? Because of the way it failed. So that's one thing I will check. I'll look at the drawings, look at the structural drawings, calculate the loads. It will be called what we call the dead load, because it failed. There was not a lot of people in the building, at least from reports. So the life load, or the load of people, the weight of people will not be a whole lot, but the weight of the structure itself was there. So I will calculate the weight of the structure, calculate the amount of load that those columns were supposed to support, especially the columns at the lowest floor, and then add up some life load and figure out whether the column as designed was able to take that load. If it was able to take that load, then I will say, okay, I need to check the concrete strength. The concrete strength that was in the design drawings, was it exactly what was on the structure? Or did anybody cut corners? So I will be asking myself those questions. I will take a core sample. I will go to the site, take a core sample, take to the lab, test it, break the concrete, and find out what the concrete strength is. Based on that, I will then confirm whether the concrete strength as designed was the concrete strength that was in the actual structure. And then I will also check the foundations. That building is built on reclaimed land, according to reports that I've read. So I would check the foundations. Was something wrong with the foundations? Was there a geotechnical report to say that this is how much this building can support, and this is the type of foundation that should be used? So I would check all of that in order to arrive at what the root cause of the collapse might be.
The engineer further advised developers to always use standard materials in building.
Number one, make sure that you are using a true licensed professional. The Nigerian Society of Engineers has a list of licensed professionals. They regulate engineering practice in Nigeria. So they want to make sure that they don't cut corners and use someone who is not licensed. And then they want to use a reputable contractor, because you might find people that will do it for you on the cheap, but when things like this happens, like this type of collapse, it's pretty sad and devastating to see something like this. So it's better to be, to be wise and not go for the cheap. So I would say lay people should make sure that they employ licensed professional engineers to design their buildings, who will then recommend a reputable contractor for them, and not just use someone off the street that has built a building before. So because I see that there's a lot of collapses going on in Nigeria.